The dinner rush at Le Jardin, a candlelit French restaurant overlooking downtown Seattle, was winding down as rain tapped softly against the tall glass windows. It was just past 9 p.m. on a Wednesday, late enough for exhaustion to sink in, early enough for desperation to still hope. Sarah Miller moved between tables with practiced precision, her apron tight at the waist, her smile thin but steady. Every step hurt. Every minute mattered. In the corner booth sat Ethan Sterling, steel-eyed, silent, impossibly calm. When he stood to leave, he didn't look back. The receipt slipped from the table and landed at Sarah's feet. She picked it up. Tip $0. Her chest tightened. Seriously? A server whispered nearby. He stiffed you too. Sarah didn't respond. She cleared the table quickly, jaw clenched, hands shaking. That tip wasn't luxury. It was her son's medication. As she lifted the dinner plate, a folded card slid out from underneath, stopping her cold. She opened it. Be at Pier 59 at midnight. Come alone. Prove it. Sarah stared at the words, pulse pounding. This wasn't pity. This was a test, set by a man who had just humiliated her in public. She folded the note slowly, eyes burning, one thought cutting through the noise of the room. Why would a billionaire leave nothing and demand everything? Subscribe now to Canada's Heartfelt Tales. Because what happens after this moment doesn't just change Sarah's life. It exposes who really holds power when the world is watching. The note stayed in Sarah's hand long after the dining room emptied, long after the last table had been reset. The rain outside strengthened, streaking the tall windows with silver lines as the city lights blurred. She stood there, apron loosened, breath tight, her mind racing faster than her pulse. Pier 59. Midnight. Alone. The words pulsed like an electric hum in her skull. Are you seriously thinking about going? Whispered Daniel, the line cook, as he stepped out from the kitchen. His voice was low and rough, tired from a double shift. Sarah hesitated. I don't know. But he left that note for a reason. Daniel shook his head. Billionaires don't leave reasons. They leave messes for people like us to clean up. He held her gaze for a moment, concern heavy in his eyes. Whatever that man wants, it won't be simple. No, she murmured, clutching the note. Nothing in my life is simple anymore. When she finally left the restaurant, the night air greeted her with a cold bite. The rain softened into a mist that coated her hair and jacket, and for a moment she stood still on the sidewalk, one woman beneath the towering city, wrestling with a choice she never asked for. But the image of her son, breath tight in his small chest, settled everything. She made her decision. Seattle's waterfront was nearly deserted by the time Sarah approached Pier 59. Street lamps flickered along the edge of the docks, their lights stretching across dark puddles. In the distance, foghorns moaned through the mist. The city felt different here, as if every bright skyscraper had turned its back on this forgotten stretch of concrete and steel. Sarah stepped onto the pier with careful steps, her heart beating hard enough to hear. Ahead of her, a black SUV idled, its headlights off. The engine's low rumble vibrated through the quiet. The driver's window rolled down. Name? The man inside asked without expression. Sarah Miller. The man lifted his wrist to his mouth. She's here. A metallic click sounded from the side door of the warehouse. Go straight, the man instructed. He's waiting. Sarah's fingers tightened around the note in her pocket. To what? Inside, the warehouse swallowed her whole. The cavernous space echoed with the hum of old lights overhead. Rows of shipping containers formed industrial corridors that stretched into darkness. The air smelled of dust, oil, and something metallic she couldn't name. A single pool of white light glowed in the center of the room. And in that circle sat Ethan Sterling. No entourage, no guards. Just him, sleeves rolled up, papers spread across a folding table like battlefield maps. He didn't look up right away. He finished whatever line he was writing, then set down his pen. You came, he said. The tone wasn't warm. It was measured, almost clinical, like he was observing the outcome of an experiment. Sarah stepped into the light. Why did you bring me here? Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying her with unreadable eyes. Earlier tonight, you told me you would do anything for your son. That has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me, Ethan replied. Because people who will do anything are rare. And people who mean it, even rarer. Sarah felt irritation rise, pushing through the exhaustion that clung to her bones. You humiliated me in front of the entire restaurant, she said sharply. You left me nothing. His expression didn't change. Money isn't the only kind of value, Sarah. Maybe not for you, she shot back. But for me. Tonight it meant medicine. Something flickered in his eyes. Not guilt. Calculation. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. She didn't want to. But she needed answers. She sat. Ethan slid a thick stack of documents toward her. Rows of numbers, dates, weights, ports, signatures. That, he said, is the last 90 days of shipping logs for my logistics division. My executives claim the losses are routine. Fuel fluctuation. Market instability. Human error. I disagree. Sarah frowned. And you brought me here because, what? You think I can fix your business problems? I think you notice things others overlook, he replied. You placed my wine glass on my left-hand side without being told. You removed the rind because you could tell I'd be irritated if you didn't. You memorized my order down to the second. You watch. You analyze. You adapt. His gaze sharpened. I don't need another Ivy League strategist. I need someone who sees. Sarah looked down at the papers again. The columns swam for a moment, then slowly sharpened into patterns. Weight listed at departure. Weight listed at arrival. A discrepancy that seemed small at first glance but reappeared again and again. Why me? She asked quietly. Because you've had to survive, Ethan answered. And survival teaches precision. For a moment neither spoke. Then Sarah turned to the second page. A signature caught her eye. A jagged M. The same signature appeared beside every underweight container. And only the high-value containers were affected. Electronics, textiles, medical equipment. Someone was stealing. Her breath caught. You see it, Ethan murmured. She looked up at him. It's not random. It's intentional. And who is the signature? Ethan asked. Someone with access to the port. She flipped pages faster now, following the pattern. Someone who knows exactly what shipments won't trigger suspicion. Ethan's voice lowered. His name is Marcus Thorne. Sarah froze. Thorne. Ethan's last name wasn't Thorne, but... He's your family, she whispered. Ethan's jaw tightened. My brother-in-law. Silence rippled between them. Heavy. Unforgiving. When Sarah finally spoke, her voice was almost a whisper. Why tell me this? Because you found it in minutes. Ethan rose, pacing slowly around the table. And because I need someone I can trust. Sarah let out an incredulous laugh. Trust. You left me 0 tip. He stopped behind her chair. His presence felt colder than the room itself. I didn't tip you, he said quietly, because I wasn't testing your service. I was testing you. Sarah's breath hitched. I'm not some experiment. No, he stepped back into the light. But you are someone who doesn't break. The room felt too small, too bright, too sharp. She pushed her chair back. I'm leaving. Wait, Ethan said, but his voice wasn't a command this time. It was almost human. She turned toward him. He held out a check. The number on it made her stomach twist. $200,000. For your son, he said. And for identifying the leak. Sarah's throat tightened. You don't even know me. I know enough. No, you don't. You don't know what I've fought through. You don't know what it's like to work 2 jobs and still fall short. You don't know what it feels like to stand in front of a pharmacist and realize you can't afford to keep your child breathing. Ethan stood still, letting every word hit. When the silence finally settled, he said only, You're right. I don't know. And that's exactly why I need you. The offer came next. Executive assistant, high salary, medical coverage, a place in his estate. A new life she never imagined. And she accepted. Life inside the Sterling estate was another world. Sharp edges, glass walls, whispered conversations behind closed doors. But nothing cut deeper than Veronica Vance, Ethan's fiancée. She saw Sarah not as a threat but as an insult. "You don't belong here," Veronica said one night in the marble hallway, heels clicking like warnings. "Ethan is vulnerable. Easy to manipulate. If you're smart, you'll pack your things before someone does it for you." Sarah walked past her without responding. She had endured far worse than cruelty dressed in diamonds. But Veronica was not merely cruel. She was dangerous. And she was watching. Weeks passed. Sarah's instincts sharpened, her confidence grew, and Ethan relied on her more than he admitted. Late-night strategy sessions, quiet conversations, moments of unspoken trust. But the world of power never stayed still. And betrayal never stayed quiet. It came one morning, sharp, sudden, merciless. Security guards outside her door. Ethan's voice, cold and controlled. Veronica beside him with the satisfaction of someone already celebrating victory. "You used my login," Ethan said, tossing photos onto the desk. "You leaked merger details to Omni Corp." Sarah felt the floor tilt. "I didn't, Ethan, I swear, I would never." Veronica stepped forward. $50,000 was wired to your account. Anonymous sender. "Oh sure. Quite a coincidence. I didn't receive." But the guards were already moving. "Get out," Ethan said, voice breaking in a way he refused to show. "You have 1 hour." Sarah tried to speak, tried to reach him. But he looked away. Love, trust, safety gone in an instant. The mansion door slammed behind her. The rain returned. And for the first time in months, Sarah had no answers. Only questions. And one burning truth. Someone had set her up. The fight back began not with anger, but with clarity. If Veronica framed her, there would be evidence. Not digital, physical. And Sarah knew where physical records lived. Pier 59. JR, the loading supervisor whose honesty was rough but dependable, met her with hesitant sympathy. "This is a bad idea," he muttered, unlocking the archive room. "It's the only idea," Sarah replied. The basement smelled of damp cardboard and old ink. Filing cabinets stretched like forgotten soldiers in the shadows. Sarah combed through expense reports, shipment receipts, port logs, anything bearing Veronica's name. And then she found it. Courier receipt. Sender, Veronica Vance recipient. Omnicorp Legal Department contents. Hard drive. Dated 2 weeks earlier. Her pulse quickened. Veronica had sent the merger details physically long before framing Sarah. Sarah kept digging. She found more. A bank authorization log showing the fake transfer to her account, authorized from the Sterling yacht. At 4:15 a.m., Ethan had been home. Veronica had been on the yacht. "That's it," Sarah whispered. "Proof. Enough to break the lies open." She sprinted up the stairs, papers in hand. "JR, I need a ride. Now." He didn't argue. Sterling Tower rose like a blade into the sky. In the boardroom on the top floor, the vote to remove Ethan Sterling had already begun. Veronica sat poised, calm, victorious. "Ethan is compromised," she said. "And the company needs leadership that cannot be manipulated by emotional distraction." Hands lifted around the table. Betrayal in slow motion. And then, the doors slammed open. Sarah burst in. Rain-soaked, breathless, fire in her eyes. "I object." Veronica shot to her feet. "Get her out." But Ethan stood frozen, not at her appearance but at her expression. She wasn't pleading. She was certain. "Look at the documents," Sarah said, stepping forward as a guard grabbed her arm. Veronica sent the data weeks ago. She faked the leak. She wired the money. And the transfer came from the yacht, where she was staying. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Veronica paled. "Check the tracking number," Sarah said, voice steady. If I'm lying, arrest me. Ethan typed the number into his phone. The room held its breath. Delivered. Line 4. Veronica flinched. Ethan, she started, but her voice cracked. You destroyed my company, he said quietly. You framed the one person who never lied to me. And you did it because your ego couldn't handle being seen. Veronica's mask shattered. She lunged for the papers, screaming, You're throwing away everything for a waitress. No, Ethan said, stepping back. I'm saving everything from a traitor. Security took her by both arms. She fought, shrieking, makeup running, composure gone. Ethan didn't look away. Neither did Sarah. As Veronica was dragged out, the board sat stunned in their chairs, silent witnesses to the fall of a woman who believed she could rewrite consequences. But consequences always arrive. And hers had come. The room didn't move. Ethan finally exhaled, turning toward Sarah slowly, as if afraid she might vanish. Sarah! He took a step toward her. But Sarah lifted a hand, not to stop him, but to steady herself. The storm wasn't over. Not yet. And what came next would change everything. Because Veronica wasn't done paying. Ethan stood in the quiet hallway long after the boardroom emptied, the city lights casting shifting reflections across the glass walls. Sarah didn't move toward him, yet something between them had already changed, something steadier than trust and sharper than the fear that once ruled both their lives. She had walked through humiliation, doubt, and betrayal, and still returned with the truth in her hands. And Ethan, for the first time in years, understood what real loyalty looked like. Sarah looked down at the papers she had fought so hard to gather. I didn't come back for revenge, she said softly. I came back because some things deserve to be made right. Her voice carried none of the hesitation she once hid behind. It was clear, grounded, and entirely her own. Ethan nodded, a quiet recognition passing between them. The empire he nearly lost now stood on a foundation he hadn't expected. Her courage. And Sarah realized that the walls she once feared had become the place she reclaimed her voice. Outside, the rain finally stopped, leaving the pavement shining beneath the street lamps, like the world had been washed clean, ready for whatever came next. If this story moved you, please like, share, and help Canada's Heartfelt Tales grow by subscribing to the channel.